Hey guys, welcome to Pretty Tough Talk.za, and my guy will be interviewing Dirk Steenekamp from Fighters Only magazine about his predictions for the upcoming EFC 21 on Thursday, on the 25th of July. Welcome, Dirk.
Awesome, thanks, guy.
Okay, so first off, which of the main card fights are you most excited to see, and why?
Basically, I'm going to be a complete cliche. I'm going to say Abdul Hassan and Demarte Pena, the main event. Reason being, I feel Abdul has a lot to offer in terms of the tools he's got, and the possibility of finishing a fight with a great jiu-jitsu game, and he's also got very solid stand-up. And I think in the events we saw glimpses of just how good Demarte actually is. So it'll be great to see if he can actually build on that and put in a dominant performance. It's obviously a title fight and a big fight for both guys, but just in terms of their career trajectory, I think it's it is a must win for both.
Awesome. Okay, and then obviously there's a lot of new guys, and there's a lot of undercard fights which everyone's interested in. Which of the undercard fights are you most excited for, and why?
Uh, sure. The undercard fights, I would have to say, with every event, there's so many new guys coming through, and I've seen a whole bunch of them at amateur level, and it's great to see them actually come through the ranks and make their EFC Africa debuts. Two guys that really stood out for me is the two Witter brothers. Um, both of them have had great amateur careers, and they train with Fred Nauman. Also, they were the same camp that's with Fred Nauman. So those two guys I'm really excited to see, and they both have very tough opponents. So it'll be great to see exactly where they stack up with the rest of the EFC Africa talent.
Okay. Now that Demarte has changed the way he approaches his fights, and he's being more aggressive and outspoken in the build up to his fights, how do you think this will affect his performance?
He's still a very young guy, and he is a champion. And it's one of those things that if someone can get into someone else's head and you deviate from your game plan, it's victory for your opponent more often than not. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can channel that aggression. He has been quite outspoken that he is going to, he's going to come in and fight now, as opposed to just being very tactical and sort of sitting back and picking his shots. So, if he doesn't overcommit with any of his attacks, and he makes sure that he doesn't make mistakes and he takes calculated risks, I think he'll be a better fighter for it, and he'll very quickly become a massive fan favorite.
Okay, cool. Cool. Looking at the heavyweights, I mean, this is probably got the most heavyweight fights on the card that we've seen, at least in a long time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the current heavyweight division? Do you think there's enough depth to test the likes of Potts and Van, taking into consideration that if Bernardo wins the fights against Soares, he'll be next in line for a third time to compete for the title?
Yeah, I mean, if you look to our friends in North America, they had a very similar situation where a sort of weakish heavyweight division was a big global problem, and that has now been sorted out. And I believe the same for South Africa, where at one stage it really was only Mikixi, Potts, and Van, whereas now there are tons of guys coming through the ranks. There are guys putting in the hours, they're putting in the grind, they're putting in the time fighting their amateur fights, and we're a country and a nation of big human beings, and I've no doubt that there's going to be a lot of new talent coming through in the heavyweight division, and we won't just see the same three guys fighting each other all over.
Cool. And then conversely, do you think if Ruan wins his fights against Hassan, will he be more deserving for a title shot than Soares or Bernardo?
Oh, uh, yeah, that's a tough question. I think that really boils down to the type of performance he puts in. If Potts comes in and it's he battles to win a decision, then you can start asking the questions. But if he puts in a dominant performance and he finishes his opponent, say in the first round, and he looks good, it'll be very tough to not give him another crack at Andrew. And I suppose the same goes for the Bernardo and the Soares fight. If it's sort of a lackluster backwards and forwards battle that goes to a decision, as opposed to one of them being dominant and finishing their opponent, it all sort of boils down to the type of win that they get in their bouts.
Okay. Looking at the bantamweights, there's only one bantamweight fight on this card, but do you think we're going to see a title fights emerge in the coming, if not, obviously not EFC 21, but in EFC 22 or 23?
Well, I'm pretty sure the guys at EFC will have a bantamweight title fight before the end of the year. That's a division that's incredibly deep. There are tons and tons of guys that are so good. And you'll also have a bunch of guys from featherweight that have been competing as featherweights in other organizations that'll be dropping down to bantamweight, which is going to be better weight divisions for them. So I'm pretty confident we'll see a bantamweight champion before the end of 2013.